Hey, this is Phineas. So with school starting and with being a parent, everything else, when I started trying to go back to having an A segment and a B segment, it turns out I was biting off a little more than I could chew. I was just getting kind of overzealous again. So this is part 1 of the episode that CC and I recorded. The other part is going to be coming out as the next episode. It's going to be based around kind of a little more history on theocracy in the States and what's been going on a little bit. There's going to be some resources in that are geared toward donating to help fight State Bill 8 in Texas. Those episodes are also, or those links are also going to be in the show notes for this episode. Thank you. Enjoy the episode. I will try to remember small bites. I can only handle small bites sometimes. Hello, this is the Apostate's Playground. I am Phineas the Apostate. I am joined by Cece, who has just informed me that the point of this is to talk about the Bible. But before that, um, just a moment of housekeeping. My yard was recently invaded by a chicken who was being very territorial about my yard bugs. So if there are angry chicken noises in the background I can't get rid of, or if there is the sound of a toddler wanting to go outside and fight said chicken because he doesn't like mean chickens in his yard, that's why. That's what's happening there. That is all the housekeeping that I have, except for apologizing for this episode being late. But we'll talk about mental illness next week. So the A segment this week is going to be a piece of the Bible because that's what we do here. I've been informed. And it starts off with Jacob overhearing Laban's sons. So you remember the sheep thing, and what happened there was Jacob took different arted up sticks and he put it in front of sheep, and then they were bred. They had spots and stripes, and it was sheep magic. And Laban hears that Jacob's sons are pretty pissed about all of that. The New Revised Standard Bible translation states that more specifically, his sons are angry that Jacob got rich off their dad. Although I don't really see what they were mad about. What happened in the Bible that I read was Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, and then Laban said, "Okay, work for 7 years," and he tricked him into marrying Leah with a headdress and a fancy scarf instead, and then said, "Okay, work for 7 more years." He got Rachel, and then Laban kept changing his pay and wages and stuff. So it seems to me like what happened was Jacob was paid for labor that he was conned into doing. So I don't really see that Laban's kids have a right to be pissed off about that.
Is this like this sounds a little bit like being underpaid at work, and so in retaliation you steal office supplies. I've heard. I've never actually done it. I've heard.
Wink. Yeah, like it seems close to that, but so my reading of it is it's more like your boss trying to underpay you at work and then trying to pay you in a different kind of currency and
Mm.
then paying you in the right currency and then conning you into working more, and so you trick them into a raise and are fairly compensated for the work that you were conned into doing in the first place. Like it seems to me like the only crime Jacob is guilty of is tricking Laban into paying him for work he shouldn't have been doing in the first place after the whole daughter thing. It seems like Laban's sons should be like, "Hey, Dad, you have this coming."
Fair's fair.
Yeah, like what the fuck? So Jacob, while he's fucking around about the estate, sees Laban is also pretty miffed about what's been happening, and then the Lord, all caps, the Lord tells Jacob to go back to Canaan, because if Jacob goes home, God will be with him there, which is a weird implication to me, right? We're in the Jewish Bible, so we're dealing with Jewish ideas of God, which sometimes is a little more corporeal. But the implication here seems to be, in my evangelical Christian rooted brain, it kind of gets tied up because it seems to imply that either God is going to abandon Jacob if he doesn't flee from Laban after 20 fucking years or so, um, or that for some reason God's not going to be able to remain in Syria anymore.
Mm. Yeah, it definitely sounds like the first one to me. It's just gonna just bounce on Jacob and just go away. And like, you're on your own, buddy. Good luck with that Laban's anger, I guess.
Yeah, which it's weird because it seems like what would have been better written to me, the better writing if I were going to edit it, would be, which some Greek dude did. So I don't know why he didn't bring this up. Um, it would be like, hey, Jacob, you are here and you are super rich, and now your progeny is going to have all of this money and all of these resources. And so now it's time to go because we've got you set up to where Israel will have some economic power once it's founded. Like if this were written by one group of people who sat down and wrote it, which it wasn't, but if it was, that seems like it would be the plot that it would want to follow. And it seems like if you were going to compile the Bible into trying to make it one cohesive story, you might have twisted a little part to make it make more sense like that. And we have the Septuagint. And the Septuagint, the old Greek manuscript, has margin notes. Like there's marginalia from where an editor was telling the guy writing it to change some stuff up. So it doesn't really seem like there's a reason for that to be in there. But Jacob does agree that he's kind of being that, like that attitude that he should be fucked, um, is bullshit. Because he goes to Rachel and Leah and he gives a big speech about how he rightfully owns those fleecy fucks, and also he had a prophetic dream. So now you have to pack your shit. We're leaving. Um, he informs Leah and Rachel that Laban doesn't want to be Jacob's friend anymore, so he has to take them home to meet the family, which is confusing because it's both his family and also their family. He also lets them know that God has been protecting Jacob this whole time. Otherwise, Laban would have successfully fucked him over, which implies that God guided the sheep breeding that got Jacob all of the livestock that was considered wealth. But it was clearly
Doesn't it
Jacob.
doesn't it also sort of like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like
Oh, by all means.
that's counter because like if God has been protecting Jacob all this time from, I guess, Laban conning him, then he wouldn't have been able to con him in the first place. So what I mean,
Well, and I think the protecting was, instead of showing up and saying, like, hey, quit fucking with my dude, or I'm gonna bring 10 plagues, send you 3 guys to stick in an oven, flood the earth, make it rain fire from the sky, like whatever things God does in other places, where he does big shows. And in this case, I like he's either waiting for his mana to recover from Sodom and Gomorrah, or he hasn't leveled up to, sending bears and plagues yet. Maybe because the way I read that means that God was guiding the sheep fucking, and that was it.
yeah,
Like that
you
was
get
God's
the
magic power.
you get the if I checked correctly, you get the raining bears at level 20. So
It could be level 20. Raining bears. Oh, that's so much better than anything that happens in the Bible.
could
And
you imagine? And bears
and,
just
and
fall down ready to maul.
in my head, it's a whole bunch of bears that, like, they have the internal monologue of the whale from Hitchhiker's Guide, where like,
Oh
what
God.
what are these things? I'll call them paws. And oh, these are clacky. What are these? I will call them teeth. But they hit the ground, and because they have to do angry bear stuff when they hit the ground, it's just boing. So it's just confused bears going poing, 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 bouncing
That's
everywhere.
where we differ because I definitely see bears as if they were like dropped by parachute out of like Navy SEALs, like jumping out of a plane or something. They jump down and they're ready to like kill,
Just
just
that
murder.
that door opens, that light comes on, you hear, and there's a bear standing at the opening, roar, 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 roar.
Exactly. Admittedly, raining bears would make for a much scarier premise than raining men. So
And it is definitely going to be the name of when I start my Slayer cover band. Raining Bears is going to be the name of the Raining Blood cover album.
sounds good. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
I'm gonna see Yogi and Boo Boo remake It's Raining Men as It's Raining Bears. But yeah, so like the the way that I read the sheep in Genesis 30 to get back on track was because Jacob had these sticks with different designs, put them in front of the sheep, and the sheep looked at them and had kids. So the idea is like if you put a striped stick in front of a horse, you get a zebra. I there's a word for it. I don't remember what the word is, so I've just been thinking of it as like optical Lamarckianism. Lamarckianism being the idea that like if you cut off your thumb, your kid will be born without a thumb, right?
Jesus.
Giraffes got long necks because they kept stretching up their necks to the trees, and
Oh
like
yeah.
so they were born with progressively longer necks instead of just some people have longer necks. That also goes for all animals. And when you can reach food, other people can't, you're more likely to breed because you have more resource security, which is actually how evolution works. So yeah, it was like kind of a Lamarckian stick magic in Genesis 30. There was clearly animal husbandry that now it's being implied was guided by God anyway. So it doesn't seem like Jacob needed the sticks unless God needs reagents, which he might. He God also tells Jacob at this point that because Jacob anointed a pillar and made a vow to God in Bethel, God is the God of Bethel. And I mentioned that even though it seems kind of like nothing, because I've also started working out of the Oxford Bible. I've been reading through the New King James, Ray Comfort, Evangelist, Apologist, Evidence Bible, going through and reading again, and then the commentaries out of the Oxford Bible, which is anthropologists and theologians. David Carr, who is a professor of the Old Testament at Union Theological Seminary, says that this is significant because it reflects a northern perspective of the story. So it's thought that part of Genesis was written in the northern tribes, and part of Genesis was written by the southern tribes. Because in the rest of the Bible, the area is not written from northern perspectives, specifically the Jerusalem Zion perspective. God dwells in Zion in Jerusalem. I'm not actually convinced about that though, which is why I bring it up, was just to say I disagree with a guy who knows what he's talking about. Because there is research or reasoning I'm totally probably unaware of. It seems narratively though, like God would be referencing Bethel because that's where Jacob did the anointing. He didn't anoint in Jerusalem. So like God's saying, hey, you did this whole anointing connected to me thing in Bethel, go to Jerusalem. Like it seems like that would be weird. So while it's totally possible that Bethel has had some like major significance to the northern Israelites, and I'm not going to doubt that narratively, it actually makes a lot of sense at this point that God would call himself the God of Bethel, because it seems like under any conception of God, any God model, if you have a monotheistic God, he is able to be the God of more than one place at the same time. Like King Louis was, the Lord of Paris, but he was also the Lord of like Leeds. Like he had more than one place. That's what that title implies. So it seems like the same kind of monarchical reasoning would apply here. Does that
I
make sense? Am I
guess
still speaking English?
you're still speaking English. My brain is just, I think I understand, but at the same time my brain is just going, so why not just say the Lord? Why say the Lord of Beth? Like, why not just say the Lord? Why specify? My brain stopped right there, and I struggled to keep up because it just had decided that that was the point.
So at this point, and you see this like even in modern Judaism. I went to Seder dinner a few years ago, and when they were saying the Seder dinner speech, I don't remember the name of, like one of the parts of it was like we used to be polytheistic and then we pulled our heads out of our asses. My words. Pre-Semitic or pre-Israelite and pre or pre-Judaism tribes that would be Israelites were polytheistic. So they had a lot of gods. And you see the same thing in like a pre-Islam Arabic culture. You have a lot of gods, then one of them comes up and goes, no, this is our guy. But so kind of what you have here is the formation of a tribe that's saying this is our tribal god. So it could be that, like, in Greek mythology, which is a little more familiar to people, you have Athena, who is the goddess of Athens. She's the patron goddess of that area.
Okay.
So Zeus was big in the area of Mount Olympus. He was kind of a big deal there. Similarly to like human monarchies, you can be the lord of more than one place in a monarchical system and still have other people be lords of other places. So if we like spread it out on a map, Moloch's over here and Yahweh is over here and Allah's over here, it just seems to me like it could be referencing the northern perspective, or it could just be that people can own more than one place in an area with other people. From an evangelical perspective, where God is the only God and there's metaphysically nobody else, you're right, it makes no sense. Why reference a place at all? Just, I am God. But from what I know of a Jewish perspective, it does kind of make sense that it keeps specifying where he's God of, because there's a certain level of like polytheistic territorialness that would have been in the mind of the authors at the time.
Okay, I think I get it.
Feel free to like bounce it back and forth, and like if I'm not being clear, I want to know, because if you're not really getting it, then I'm worried that the listener won't really be getting it. You're here to help me talk to normal people. That
Like how it's like, I probably shouldn't be the proxy for normal people. I just finished saying that my brain's locked onto one thing you said, and it was just there, and it was hard to like leave it. Like it's like, why would you have me be normal people? I'm not normal. I just finished talking about raining bears. Wait, I
I
think
know
that's normal
it's
discourse. I don't think it is.
I don't know. No, I just like I this is what I do for fun. So like if you're not getting it, it could be that like, there's some piece of information rattling around in my head. So feel free to not get it. I won't judge you.
Awesome. Because yeah, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
That's fine. So Jacob, after being told where God's summer home is, goes and talks to Rachel and Leah about this, and Rachel basically tells Jacob that, like, look, we had inheritance, we had an economic future with our dad, and he sold them to Jacob, and he gave all the resources to Jacob, and like Jacob has all of the stuff that like they would have had a share of anyway, and is treating them like foreigners, right? Because in these times, like, you didn't treat foreigners very well. There's a lot of, and also you can just have slaves of whoever doesn't live near you. It's fine. Basically, she just says, fuck him. Like, we don't have a connection to this guy anymore.
I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which I think is a perfectly reasonable stance to take once your dad sells you and gives away your stuff.
Once your dad sells both of you under the pretense of not selling one of you, and then
Yeah.
it's weird, like Parent Trap, only with like a husband. And
It's like slavery, Parent Trap.
oh, that's so bad. I shouldn't be laughing at it.
So part of why the Genesis 30 recap at the beginning of Genesis 31 and the like weird discrepancies is because this part is thought to have been written by a different author that is called Jay, from the rest of the story, as a monologue about kind of just what's been happening to Jacob's wives, because they weren't there. And so it's set up very much as a like last time in Genesis. And then we move on to like this episode, which is Jacob and the sons and the wives, and presumably I think her name is Dina, the daughter, that isn't mentioned here because she's a girl, so she doesn't count.
Yeah.
They got on camels and they proceeded to fuck off back to Canaan. Before this, while Laban was shearing his sheep, Rachel went in and stole his household gods. I assume while they were packing anyway. She was just like, hey, by the way, I'm going to sneak in. I'm going to take the idols to your gods because fuck you, bro.
I'd probably do that too, honestly. I would.
Yeah,
That it's a little bit above it's more intense than stealing all the lids of the Tupperware before you leave.
it is. But it has kind of the
It's a
same
level of
vibes.
petty though. Yeah, it's the
Like,
same
yeah,
vibe of petty. I would
like
definitely do that.
it is the stealing all the Tupperware lids of ancient theology.
Or
They're
stealing the Tupperware and leaving the lids. That's actually what you should do, because that's much less useful than leaving them Tupperware that they can use to eat out of.
that is true. Leaving the lids is
Mm-hmm.
better. So the household Tupperware, the idols may have been a reference to ancestral deities. I did find some references to the word teraphim, which is thought to be either non-Jewish gods or just disgraceful things. But that seems to be just like a fuck paganism position of just like we just hate pagans, and so they're disgraceful household pagan gods, which fits the vibe of monotheistic religion.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that. There also is a vibe of like in Rome, you had what was called the locus geni, which is Latin for spirit of the place, and it was just like the local spirits that you had to make happy or they would fuck with you, kind of like kami in Shintoism.
Mm-hmm.
And there are notes that tell us that Rachel is playing the role of the trickster, which she has a history of doing, and she is equated to Loki or Raven or other trickster figures in mythology, which gives
Mm-hmm.
kind of a like this was definitely a myth, a hero myth kind of feel to it. Moving on, 3 days, Laban was informed that they left because for 3 days he did not notice a dozen children, a whole bunch of camels, a shit ton of livestock, his son-in-law, and his daughters missing.
You think at the least it would have been just a teeny bit quieter because there's fewer bodies around?
Yeah, like that's a lot of people to just like,
That's short of an mass exodus,
yeah,
almost.
I'm not really sure what, Laban was doing. Like I spend a lot of time like in my room doing, stuff. Uh which sounds like masturbating, but mostly it's reading this shit.
Does it really
And
does?
I don't know, maybe this is a form of masochism. Do I get off on reading the Bible twice and then thinking very hard about it? That's a question for therapy. But Laban was seriously involved in some shit, apparently. So then Laban
Oh,
took his boys.
he had a fun night, I guess. He had a fun party. He was he was at the party from the last episode.
That's it. He was there getting some hippo dick.
And we come back around.
It will always be about hippo dick. Everything is hippo dick all the way down. Fuck
All
your
the
turtles.
words.
Fuck your turtles all the way down. So it took a week for Laban to catch Jacob, which I don't know, seems weird, but
It is a little. I mean, yeah, I don't know why he bothered. I mean, he
like there's that, but the reason it seems weird to me is because like you go ahead and say what you were gonna say, and then I'll say something nerdy.
oh, I wasn't gonna say anything in
Oh,
particular,
okay.
just that he I mean, he had his wives. He didn't have to stay anymore. He could leave. So he just left.
Yeah,
Well, he did. Rachel did take his idols, so
yeah, which probably piss him off. The reason it doesn't make sense to me is because of it's kind of like a Zeno's paradox kind of thing. The turtle and Achilles, how Zeno disproved motion because he was wrong. Where if Achilles gets halfway to the turtle, he has to go another halfway and then another halfway, and it's infinitely reducible. So Achilles can never match the turtle because he always has to go halfway before he goes the full way.
Sure.
And of course, the answer to that is, well, no, he doesn't. Like he can just pass the turtle. But Zeno thought he had disproved motion. And that's why this doesn't make sense to me. So they both had a big group of people. And when you have a big group of people, you move a little slower. Jacob had traveled 3 days. Then Laban traveled 3 days. So Jacob had
Mm-hmm.
traveled 3 days. And then also an additional day, which is weird to me because Laban would have had to have been moving like twice as fast as Jacob with a bunch of dudes. And Jacob was like in a hurry. So I'm curious, like how I want to know the velocity at which Laban and Jacob were moving. Like if Jacob leaves Cincinnati moving west at 120 kilometers an hour, and then Laban leaves San Francisco moving east at 140 kilometers an hour, which are very, very fast trains, also herds. Like when will they crash in Cheyenne? I want to know their velocity to make that make sense.
I'm assuming that it's because Jacob is taking a bunch of animals. They have to constantly stop to graze, or they're moving really slow. You know,
Yeah,
they got to sleep. Maybe Laban's running on pure rage. I don't know. He doesn't have as many animals to feed.
it could be, but he's still going to have a lot of animals, like because Jacob et al. Are on camels. So like
Yeah.
Laban's not going to catch them without camels can walk farther than we can. That's why we domesticated and started riding them.
Well, was Laban not taking camels as well?
It seems like in order for well, that's what I'm saying is he still would have had a bunch of animals that have to stop and eat and stuff.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's not
So
like more animals equals more feeding time. It just means it's more animals feeding at the same time.
yeah, so like, and if like the sheep could wander off, but like, wouldn't God just be like, hey, you have somebody in pursuit, so I'll just like nudge that little dude back? Like I have like I said, I have questions about the relative velocity of Laban to Jacob.
Yeah,
Like also the grammar of the weird dream Laban had one time, because before Laban overtook Jacob, he had a dream in which God appeared to him and said, "Be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad." In the New King James Version, in the NRSB, God came to Laban to tell him to say not a to tell him not to say a word to Jacob, neither good nor bad. And the implication in the first one to me, uh, be careful that you speak to Jacob, neither good nor bad, and then do not say a word to Jacob, seem to contradict each other because one of them is being neutral towards Jacob, and the other one
yeah.
is don't fucking talk to him. Like don't say shit to Jacob.
The first one sounds like some kind of like mediation. The
Yeah.
second one is confusing. It's I mean, maybe just send him a dream. If you're going to tell him not to say anything, why not just send him a dream that says turn around and go back?
Yeah, I mean, what is Laban supposed to do in the say not a word scenario? Like he just shows up and he starts like
He's just supposed to stalk him, I guess.
stalking, dancing. Is he supposed? He just rides into
Interpretive
Jacob's
dance.
camp and starts doing interpretive dance.
Just the whole Gangnam Style with camels.
Yeah, which would be much better video and an amazing T-shirt. Camel Gangnam Style T-shirt might go on the list. Instead, Laban, when he does overtake Jacob, has some questions for him. The questions are, why did you take my daughters? Why did you sneak away
What?
instead of, why'd you take my daughters? Also known as your wives. Why did you sneak away when maybe I would have thrown a party for you, a farewell party? And why did you steal my gods? Which seems like the big one.
I mean, he only really has a case for the third one. Why did you take my daughters? Is they're his wives,
Yeah,
and obviously he wouldn't throw a party for him because he didn't want him to take his daughters.
Yeah, like because I didn't keep the receipt, and how was I supposed to know I was supposed to return them? Like, fuck you, dude. Like, it's not a tux for a wedding. It's these
Do you
are people.
do you care about your daughters or not? Because you definitely conned him and gave him one daughter and then turned around and gave him the other daughter. I
It
don't I don't know.
it's weird, like the shell game taming the
Laban's
shrew
got
rules. It's
some Laban's got some very significant and concerning definitions of possession and entitlement.
Yeah, he's got some shit going on, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Jacob had answers for him. I was worried that you would forcefully not let me take them, which, if you're going to show up to your son in law and say, "Why did you take my daughters with you when you left?" seems legit because I'm worried you would take them captive. Seems like a fair answer at that point. Dude chases you for a week to say, "How dare you take your wives out of my house?" That's
Was he supposed to just leave them? I
apparently.
But in the Bible terms, aren't your wives just your property, so you get to take them?
Yeah, and like I said, that's part of why this is confusing to me. Is because Laban didn't just be like, "Hey, you can borrow them." Like, he sold them to Jacob in exchange for labor. Like,
Yeah,
my boss doesn't get to come to me and ask to borrow the $20 he paid me. Like,
he
that's
might
not.
try, but no.
I've had bosses come close,
Yeah,
and my answer was, "I don't work for you so you can pay me so I can give you money. Like, I give you labor. I sell you my labor so that you can pay me less than my labor earns." Capitalist.
eat the rich.
I
Go on.
considered I considered having Marxist revolutions at some of my workplaces because I was overworked and underpaid.
I could say a lot about that right now, but I'm not going to because it's personal life.
That's fair. Then Jacob responded to, "Why did you sneak away when I might have thrown a farewell party with? What are you talking about? Like, you don't even like me, dude. Like, I left because you and your sons were making it kind of an unhospitable living situation." And to, "Why did you steal my gods?" Jacob said, "Why don't you go through my shit and see if you can find your gods? Because I don't fucking have them." Because at no point over the last week and a half had Rachel informed Jacob that she took them.
Did she maybe take them because she also believed in them and liked them and wanted to take them with her?
I don't know. It seems weird that, like, the maybe, because if they were ancestral gods, they would have been her ancestral gods too.
Yeah, because like I mean, if she took them as like a giant fuck you to her dad, it seems like she would have told at least her sister that she had
Yeah.
done this terrible thing because she thought it was funny.
Or when she saw Laban on the horizon, she might have like tugged Jacob's sleeve and said, "Hey, I have something to tell you," at some point.
Yeah,
So yeah, Rachel decided to, when Jacob told Laban, "Hey, go through my shit," because he didn't know that Rachel had them, because she didn't go, "Hey, we need to talk." She just sat on them. So
like
when,
literally, she literally sat on them
yeah, like she put them
to
under
hide them.
her ass.
Oh, okay,
I presumably she was wearing like big clothing.
probably.
Um, and when Laban went around looking for them, he didn't look under Rachel's ass, because when he said, "Hey, stand up, let me look under your butt," she said that she asked him, like, "Don't take offense, but please don't make me get up and like move around right now, because I am being affected by the fact that I have the way of women," which is Bible for I'm on my
Mm-hmm.
period and don't want to stand up.
Yeah.
And because this is such a gross and horrible and heinous thing, that later in the Bible we'll learn that she should have been in a camp outside of camp, in a tent where she can be quarantined. Laban said, "Ew, no." And that is an attitude that a lot of men carry about menstruation to this day.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a good lie. She was quick on her feet.
It is a good lie. So Jacob told Laban, "Hey, put all your property that you found down in front of everybody and let us look at it." And Laban couldn't do that. So Jacob goes on to tell Laban that God has rebuked Laban for fucking with Jacob's wages and changing them so often, because it's because the whole thing is a labor dispute. all of the stuff that's happened and what's gone on is God called the Department of Labor and found out that there were regulations being violated. So Jacob had to leave the workplace, is what's happening with all of the person selling and the sheep magic. That's what the Bible chose to focus on.
Sure.
And part of that was Jacob telling Laban that if not for the God of Abraham, the God of his father, which is separated into two items, which is weird because, as far as I know, Isaac and Abraham had the same God. I mean, not when Abraham was born, but like eventually. And then he passed that down after almost sacrificing Isaac. It was a whole big thing
Mm.
where God was like, hey, you want to, I'm going to fuck with this guy and make him, almost kill his kid.
Yeah, he's like nudged the angels, like, "Hey, you want to see something funny?"
Yeah, the way that an all merciful good deity would.
Mm-hmm.
If not for the God of Abraham, the God of his father, unless it means Abraham's father, Nahor, so they're doubling up. Or no, because Abraham quit worshiping the God of his father for a little bit and then tried to murder Isaac. So it may be referencing Nahor. As it goes on to say, and the fear of Isaac, Laban would have sent Jacob away empty-handed. So yeah, it makes more sense if it's talking about, if not for the God of my great grandpa, the God of my grandpa, and then the fear of my dad, which is might just mean like the family of Isaac, because Isaac's family has done a lot of murder at this point. I guess it doesn't make a lot more sense. It's
Well, in the context of what this whole situation, this whole scene is, it's about on the level in terms of sense. We haven't set a very high bar here.
That's probably fair. Most charitably, what I found is that it's referring to Isaac and Abraham being related to God, which makes sense in one very specific way, and it's the evangelical way. So evangelicals do backflips to make Jesus fit into the genealogy and every single point in the Bible at some point. The way that it makes the most sense to me in the like God of Abraham, God of my father, and kin of Isaac is Jewishly saying like Isaac is a powerful military force and he will come wreck your shit. Christianly is saying that because David is a descendant of Isaac and Jesus is supposed to be a descendant of David, that the kin of Isaac is also, part of that family line is Jesus, who is God. So it's another way, like, so it would be like a prophetic interpretation. I couldn't find anything on that, but like that strikes me as the kind of thing that is almost definitely out there.
Probably. Everything else is.
Yeah, right. Otherwise it's saying, hey, if not for God and the army, you would have screwed me. Like, if not for the fact that I have privilege of having war, having militarily strengthened family, you would have cheated me. So Laban responded that Rachel and Leah were his daughters, the children were his children, the flocks were his flock, and I own everything the light touches. Which,
That's a bold claim.
yeah, especially when like you paid them to Jacob. Yeah.
Should have gotten
So,
it written
but
in
he's not.
contract, buddy. You can't.
It seems like God is the contract in this one, because Laban was told not to say anything nice or mean to Jacob and or don't speak to him at all. So Laban's idea about like, you took everything I feel entitled to,
He sort of fucked up on both those accounts.
is to go, what are you gonna do? Let's make a covenant. Which is, the whole speech is just 100% Laban trying to figure out how he didn't get his ass kicked. It is a two groups in the Bronze Age desert going, no, man, I totally would have had him. If I went off, I'd have killed him. I'd kill, my fists are registered as weapons with the police department. I'd have killed him. Like, so Jacob had his boys make a heap of stones. So they had dinner, and Laban called the heap Yeger Sahaduta, and Jacob called it Galid, which is Arabic and Hebrew respectively for heap of witness. So they promised not to go past the heap, kissed, blessed, and left the next morning, having divided the Middle East down the middle like a bedroom in an 80s sitcom. And that is Genesis 31.
I have no witty retorts to that because I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it's a weird out of, like, I try to find the moral in the story because it's supposed to be a moral book where every part of it will help you in your life. I don't know what the moral is to that story.
I don't know.
Be totally neutral with guys named Jacob.
Well, he didn't even do that.
Don't chase people down to try and get back things you paid them.
Don't try to renege on no takesy backsies, I guess.
Oh, if you can't find God, look under women on their period.
That that's not a really good idea to say because that's how you end up in the Me Too movement
The whole
because you
religion needs to be
suggested,
in me.
yeah.
The whole fucking religion needs to be me too.
You're like, well, Phineas
I
said, like, oh,
I can't worry about getting canceled. Because eventually those skeletons are gonna fall out of my closet. But yeah, so that's Genesis 31.